Welcome to the New Testament Church of God in Erdington, also known as New Life Erdington. We are a family-friendly church situated in Goosemore Lane, and we're really pleased that you've decided to join us online today. Our prayer is that you will be encouraged, strengthened and comforted as we share the love of Jesus with you. Don't forget to leave your comments below, and if you have any questions, a need for assistance or prayer, then you can leave your request in the comments or contact us in the details you see at the bottom of your screen. New Life Erdington. Together we have faith.
Psalm 34 says, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall always boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me. Let's exalt his name together. Hallelujah. Let's magnify him. Oh, magnify the Lord. For he is worthy. For he is worthy to be praised. Oh, magnify the Lord. For he is worthy. For he is worthy to be praised. Hosanna. Hosanna. Blessed be the rock. Blessed be the rock of my salvation. Hosanna. Blessed be the rock. Blessed be the rock of my salvation. Okay, so that was the first time round. Now we'll invite you to stand where you are, wherever you are in the world. Lift up your hands and worship him. Oh, magnify the Lord. Magnify the Lord. For he is worthy. For he is worthy to be praised. Oh, magnify. Magnify the Lord. He is worthy. For he is worthy to be praised. Hosanna. Hosanna. Blessed be the rock. Blessed be the rock of my salvation.
lift up our voices and we give him the highest praise because he's worthy of it all. Somebody just sing with us. Hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. We give you the highest praise, Lord, for your worthy of it all. Oh, we lift you up, Jesus. We magnify your matchless name. There's no one like you, none beside you. We sing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Oh, we bless your name, Lord. We magnify your matchless name. Hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah, hallelujah. You're worthy, Lord, you're worthy. You're worthy.
I'm very grateful that we still continue to fellowshipping with each other through this media devices, either through Zoom, or the YouTube, or the conference call.
I'm grateful for so much, but to find one thing, I'd say I'm really quite grateful that I still have a job and I can help and reassure people. I'm grateful.
Hey, one thing I'm grateful for during lockdown, it's Richard, by the way. I'm just grateful for time with my daughter. You know what? Sometimes you can get so busy, but having just time at home with the family, you know, like today, I was sitting here and you know what? I was just listening to Mealy. Mealy was talking to me for about 15 minutes. I wasn't saying much to her, but I was just listening to what she had to say. And it was amazing. It's just amazing sometimes you just listen to your children just on what they've got to say, their ideas. And I'm just like, wow. So I'm just truly grateful for that. And that's one thing I'm grateful for.
Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe in the river, and her attendants walked along the river bank. When the princess saw the basket among the reeds, she sent her maids to get it for her. When the princess opened it, she saw the baby. The little boy was crying and she felt sorry for him. "This must be one of the Hebrew children," she said. Then the baby's sister approached the princess. "Should I go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" she asked. "Yes, do," the princess replied. So the girl went and called the baby's mother. "Take this baby and nurse him for me." The princess told the baby's mother, "I will pay you for your help." So the woman took her baby home and nursed him. Later, when the boy was older, his mother brought him back to the Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her own son. The princess named him Moses, for she explained, "I lifted him out of the water."
Many years later, when Moses had grown up, he went out to visit his own people, the Hebrews, and he saw how hard they were forced to work. During his visit, he saw an Egyptian beating one of his fellow Hebrews. After looking in all directions to make sure no one was watching, Moses killed the Egyptian and hid the body in the sand. The next day, when Moses went out to visit his people again, he saw two Hebrew men fighting. "Why are you beating up your friend?" Moses said to the one who had started the fight. The man replied, "Who appointed you to be our prince and judge? Are you going to kill me as you killed the Egyptian yesterday?" Then Moses was afraid, thinking, "Everyone knows what I did." And sure enough, Pharaoh heard what had happened, and he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in the land of Midian. When Moses arrived in Midian, he sat down beside a well.
Good morning, Erdington Church family, and I hope you're all well. And a warm welcome to anybody else joining us this morning. The context for the scripture that you just heard the children of Erdington read so beautifully is that there was a new Pharaoh who had made the decision that any child born to the Hebrew women, especially if they were male, would be put to death. So what you have here is Moses' mom, his birth mom, in an attempt to save his life, placing him in the river. Now the irony of it all is that he was rescued by Pharaoh's own daughter, and then she in turn asked Moses' mom to raise him and paid him for that privilege. In those days, the child it took 5 years to wean a child, and so she would have spent a substantial amount of time with her little son. But the consequence of Moses having an adoptive family and a birth family is that he was a man. He became a man of two worlds. He was a Hebrew by birth, but an Egyptian by rearing. He was nursed by his Hebrew mother as an infant, who took him up and helped him grow to 5, but he was raised by an Egyptian royal adoptive mother who took him right through to adulthood. He was a prince of Egypt and had access to all the privileges that gave him. But he was acutely aware of his Hebrew heritage, with a deep connection to that community because of all the religious and cultural instruction he would have received. We are all products of our environment. We wear very different hats in different environments, don't we? We're one thing at work, at home, at church. We learn how to be appropriate in whatever arena we are. And that's fine as long as we're genuine and the core us is still seen. Being in the palace and learning the ways of that allowed Moses to be able to know how to operate and navigate Pharaoh's court. But his Hebrew upbringing allowed him to fulfill his purpose. Moses, I believe, would have been conflicted at points though. He would have been separated by his affluence, but could see firsthand the suffering of his people. Some of us are experiencing a very different lockdown, aren't we? You know, you've been blessed, you've worked hard, and you're enjoying the fruit of that labour. But I'd ask you to not just spare a thought, but find something very practical way to help those less fortunate than you. We then also find then in verse 14 and 15, Moses as a man who was rejected by all and accepted by none. His Hebrew community didn't want anything to do with him, and in verse 15 Pharaoh actually sent out an edict to kill him. So Moses ran. I'm sure there are many of us that can relate to running at some point in our lives, or has felt an outsider that you don't quite fit, or worse still, felt the sting of rejection. But know that you're not alone, and sometimes in those times it's when you really find out who you are. So what are the lessons that I kind of want to draw out from the text this morning? The first one is that just know who you are. There'll be many sides to you and many versions of you over the years. You'll make mistakes, but there should be learning that comes from that will make you better and helps to shape you. You'll experience great things that will help you to become wise and knowledgeable, and you'll know things a little bit in a different way. You'll also know the joy and the pain of doing life with other people. And those experiences shape and change you. I encourage you to reconcile the many versions of you and sides to you, and never be held hostage to a former version of yourself. Just keep moving forward. The second point I wanted to bring out is never underestimate your influence. 5 years in a span of a lifetime may seem short, but Moses' mother impacted his life in that short period of time. She would have given him a religious instruction. He was from the house of Levi. His father would have had access to him and given him instruction in the priestly way, which would have stood him in great stead for leading the people. In fact, that time that they had with him, he made sure that he connected with his community. In fact, in Hebrews 11:24 it says that he refused to be seen as a son of Pharaoh's daughter. That's how tight the connection was. So never underestimate your influence. That is why you have to choose carefully who you choose to spend time with. It's important. It's important what you say. Words matter and last. And also what you do, because it speaks volumes and people are watching. Jesus used the metaphor of salt and light in Matthew 5:13-14 to describe the essential character of kingdom people. We are supposed to be people of influence and good deeds. I would encourage you to do that and find a way, proactive way in this time, to do something good for your neighbour, for a work colleague, and think differently. The final thing I want to leave you with is that Moses had to make a choice. He had to make a choice as to which world he was going to live in. You too will be asked to make a choice, and the biggest choice is whether you serve Christ or not, whether you live a life of service to Him and to others, or you choose to do your own thing in your own way. I truly hope that you make the right decision. There's a beautiful song by Israel Houghton that says, I'm not going back, I'm moving ahead, here to declare to you my past is over in you. All things are made new. He surrendered my life to Christ. I'm moving forward, moving forward. I pray that that becomes your prayer today. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe, stay blessed.
Thank you so much for joining with us today. We hope that you have been challenged, you've been encouraged, and also you can feel God's love. We'll be here again, same time, same place next week, bringing to you another message of God's love. But in the meantime, if you need someone to speak to, please reach out to us. Maybe you want some prayer or some encouragement. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can also visit us on our website, and there we'll keep you up to date with our services, our events, and also our online service. Thank you for joining with us today. Have a lovely and have a blessed week.